Welcome to Let's Go Live. I'm Gigi Mara, and I have with me fantasy and sci-fi author Michelle Park Lazette. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Gigi.
I'm
I'm
really
happy to
excited to
be
have
here.
you. I'm excited to have you on, even though you left me on a cliffhanger with that book.
Well, I did. I did. And I've had a number of different fun interactions with early readers from someone suggesting that we create a sweatshirt that says Save Eugene to others asking, we need to know if Mitch and Audrey are going to be together in the next book. And I said, wouldn't you like to know? And the person told me today, yes, I would. So that's been one of the best experiences of this past month and a half,
Mhm.
where we did have advanced reader copy readers, is just seeing like this world that used to just live in my head and these
Yep.
characters who just used to speak to me now speaking to other people. It's something that I compared in some of my social media posts to, like, um, Gigi, do you have children? I don't know if
I
you do.
do. Yeah, I'm a
Okay.
single mom, only parent household.
Okay. So, mad hats off to you. My mom was a single mom, and as a mother now
Yeah.
myself, I really just have an appreciation for what that entails. And so I'll share with you what I feel like might be resonant then is, like having people say Audrey's name and Mitch's name and Kevin's name and Eugene's name. It reminds me a little bit about like where you name your infant and then people just like come along for the ride and they call them their name. And you're like, wow, I created someone that someone else is talking about and talking to. And it's just been really neat.
That's wonderful. So I know you wanted to flip this script here and ask me a few questions, and then we'll get back into your interview because I really want to open the floor to you, but I want to talk about your book too.
Okay. Well, so Gigi and I have been talking on Instagram, and I had explained to her that I built a career as a newspaper reporter first.
Yep.
And so I'm used to the being the one that asks the questions, and my husband used to tease me, or still does, because when a political pollster or someone local is calling for opinions about something, most people are like, no, bye.
Just hands it
And
to you.
and meanwhile, I'm like, oh, I've got time for you. Yeah, I'm ready to answer some questions, to be the one that's asked the questions after a career of being the one that is posing the questions. So I
Mhm.
thought it would be fun to flip the switch on you, Gigi, and do it this or that, which
I'm in
is
the hot
where
seat. Yes.
are you familiar with the format?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I have a couple, maybe like six. So, early bird or night owl?
Oh, 100% early bird. 5 a.m.
Oh, oh. You are like my husband who left me, he writes letters to us before he leaves for work in the morning.
Aw,
So very
that's
sweet.
sweet.
Meanwhile, me in the mornings, 2 hours later, I'm a tornado to get out of the house. So I blame my kids, but it's not their fault. It's mine.
I have
Um,
a child that has to be at 5 o'clock workouts, 5 a.m. So we're
woo,
waking up at 4:30. Yep. Mm-hmm.
woo. Yes, then you are an early bird.
Yep.
Okay, next one. Hot or cold weather?
Girl, I live in Houston. It's beyond hot. It's like the setting of hell.
I have been to San Antonio, and I once had a job offer in Amarillo, but didn't end up pursuing that job offer. But I did live in Palm Springs, California. Shout out to Palm Springs. And I did live in Phoenix, Arizona, so I
Uh,
have an appreciation for desert heat.
yeah, Phoenix, I feel is like only lizards and reptiles can live there. I don't know how people do it.
With air conditioning and pools.
Yeah,
Yep.
same here.
All right. But do you prefer the hot or do you prefer cold?
I recently took a trip to Colorado and I would love to move there in a few
Hmm,
years. So,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
Stay
Apple
tuned, everybody.
juice. Sorry, what?
I said, stay tuned, everybody.
Yeah, well, apple juice or pineapple juice?
I'm not a juice. I don't like the
Huh?
sugar.
Yeah. I Yeah, I don't drink a lot of juice, and my kids have this like green drink that has all kinds of like veggies in it. Don't tell them.
Yeah.
And so we give that to them, but I'm still concerned about the sugar content because they say, kids are not exactly reliable about brushing their teeth without being told. So, yeah. All right, this one's important.
Mm.
Taylor Swift or Taylor Swift?
Okay, so I feel like I'm a little bit out of her target audience because of my age, but hats off to her because she has been doing one thing and has been a billionaire. No brand deals, no nothing else, just putting out albums. So mad respect
Mm-hmm.
her enterprise ship. And so I do like her music. Do I listen to it often? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
My teenagers, I have a son who we listen to rap and country all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have another one who's like a music connoisseur. So yeah.
I didn't fully buy the Taylor Swift movement until the Eras tour. And then when I was watching the Eras tour with my children in the theater and then with my middle who had gotten into this, I want to watch on Disney Plus, I started to realize how much of her catalog is just pop culture. And I didn't really, I don't think that I really comprehended how much of her music I knew word for word and I had listened to over the years. So, yeah.
Well, mad respect to her because we're all on social media. You see a clip of her podcast when she was a, guest on the New Heights podcast, I think
Hmm.
the Kelsey brothers call it. And, the equalizer amongst all of us is everybody has 24 hours. It doesn't matter if you're a female billionaire entertainer or if you're me and you here today. And so she had said that she was on these Eras tours, hundreds of cities, right? 3.5 hours in heels for stamina, the 6 months running on a treadmill to prepare in advance, which all those things are down to her. Like she doesn't need to do it. She has enough money, but yet she loves her fans and loves the music enough to do it. And then she was putting on these shows, 3 shows in a row. She'd have a few days off and then she'd fly to Sweden to record the album that's coming out next month. And so you have to respect that work
Hmm.
ethic because again, the equalizers, we all have the same hours. Are we as efficient as she is? And that is just pure love for the fans and drive because there's no other way to explain that kind of work ethic. So it's mad respect for that.
Well, and there's no comparison,
Oh, none.
but I would say, it's also just a mad love for the craft.
Mm-hmm.
And I work full time. I have 3 children, ages 9, 7, and 3. And I have a partner, my husband, and people have asked me like, how do you have the energy to write a novel, let alone a novel and a half, because I have a standalone novel that's more than halfway written. And I told them, honestly, you might give it a try. Give not necessarily novel writing, but something that has been like gnawing away at you that you think
Mm-hmm.
you might want to do, that you think you can do, and that you don't think you have time for or energy for. Because what I have found, Gigi, is I feel energized after a full day of work. I'm more of a night owl. I still, if I get to sit down with my creativity and just, fiction is totally like I make it up. So
Yeah.
I find it really energizing to make things up. I find it energizing to delve into the minds of characters that I create, but then also, and more importantly, for anyone who's listening and maybe they do think they have a book in them, nonfiction or fiction, or they think they have a song in them, or a sculpture in them. Like it is energizing to do something for you. It really is, and I don't think that it's any surprise to someone who knows me, but for all of the folks who don't. I was listening to one of your recent episodes where you guys talked about the guilt that women feel that
Mm-hmm.
maybe men feel, some men, maybe a lot of men feel, but in particular with like the societal expectations and somewhat I think a double standard still exists where like you have people ask like well what about your kids? And I I appreciate that, but I also push back and say, do you ask the male CEO of the company, what about your kids? And if you don't, then you should probably dissect why that is. Um,
Exactly.
but I think it's important for every person to, have something for themselves where they feel like they're pursuing something that is selfish. And the reason I think that is because we don't. I mean, also in your episode, you and your guest talked about how you live a certain amount of years and you start to see that people pass away before their time. People pass away when they've lived great lives, and you start to really understand, because these are people you know and love and care about and miss, that this is your chance. And so I'm not going to spend my chance, deciding that I have to wait 10 years until my children are older to pursue a dream. I just decided I was going to do it. And one of the things that I share with people, not that you asked for this diatribe of mine, is I say, like, the way that I have sort of overcome some of the guilt, because I still feel guilty. Like today, I still feel guilty because my husband put our littlest to bed when I usually do.
Mhm.
And I did it for an authorly pursuit. But what I tell myself, and this is probably going to resonate most with caregivers, whether it's someone caring for their parents, their sister, their kids, their cat, is like, I want my children to not give up on themselves and their passions just because they have kids. And the best way for me to instill that in them is to be someone who said, I loved you completely, but I also still wanted to do the things that spoke to me because I felt like I could show up more for you if I did. So that's my monologue on mommy guilt and still pursuing your dreams, and daddy guilt and non-binary guilt. Like, anyone who feels guilty for pursuing their passion, I would ask them to really, like, reconsider that guilt.
I 100% agree. We are dream chasers in my household. College is always there, corporate America is always there. You can always go back. But I feel like when the risks are low, which they're the lowest when you're still living at home, the
Hmm.
rewards are sky high or endless, but the risk is almost next to zero. But when you have a marriage, a mortgage, and children, and a house, and all that, then that risk reward model is much different. And so I try to, and they see me chasing my dreams, so it makes it more accessible and more mainstream to them.
Hmm. I agree. I agree. Okay, one last this or that, and then I will conclude my interviewing of the interviewer. Do you write a first draft all the way through, or do you edit as you go?
Oh, all the way through. It is horrible and messy. It doesn't make sense. And then there is another author on here. She's my writing bestie, Sienna Gypsy. She's an Aussie. And so we share the same developmental editor. And so our dev editor gets the gory, rough draft that doesn't make sense. She has to figure out, like, where are you going? And she kind of helps us both. So,
That's awesome.
yes, I am very blessed with my team. It's taken some years to assemble the right people, but we are assembled. We're a team.
I mean, and independent publishing, one of the things that I've been reflecting on as I've done this myself, is how important that team is. Whether it's your author critique group, which my author critique group, the members of it live on the West Coast. So it just so happened that I was a reporter on the West Coast, and then, had been pretty upfront about how I was pursuing an authorly career. And then one of my author friends, who is traditionally published, said, hey, do you want to, like, join our author group? And I said, sure. And so I submitted something to be seen by them to see if, like, our styles would mesh. And it ended up working out. So I have them, but then, I used Read Z to find my cover artist in
Oh,
Barcelona. And I have an editor in Kate Broad of Broad Editorial, and I think she's in New York. And so, similar to you, when you find someone who's worth their weight in gold, you tell your author friends about them. And so, more than one of us has relied on Kate to help us write query letters, write blurbs, developmentally edit a manuscript and so on and so forth. So team is just so important because, like, honestly, we're like an enterprise of one with contractors, you know.
Exactly.
So
Ripped pages, you ask, are you a plotter or a pantser? So I'll answer for me and then you can answer for you. I am a 100% pantser.
same, and that Rip Pages is Kate, and Kate and I
Oh,
have been working together for several months. Go, Kate.
nice.
I do recommend Kate. I met her through someone with whom I work full time, and she owns a literary marketing boutique, and she is one of the people who's worth their weight in gold. So she started my Instagram. I did not really use Instagram, and so she started it this year, and then has really been instrumental in my bouncing ideas off of her about like what should we do. I'm a full-time marketer, so I do think that I have like a step up in that regard with, you know, like with the independent publishing. You have so much to learn. Like you have to learn about ISBNs and LLCs, and oh, you have to have your bank account set up, and then the bank account has to be fed into by Square, and then it has to be fed into by
Mhm.
WooCommerce. And oh, you better make sure that your shipping zones on WooCommerce are right. And like, and so it's been nice to know some of the disciplines and some of the like the going, I would say, tenets of marketing as I've marched this way. But I've learned a lot from Kate, and I've been thankful. As far as plotter pantser, I am a total pantser. Like it would bore me to have a total outline written out where I knew what Mitch was going to say here. I knew the major climactic point in each chapter, and I don't know why that is, but it is just how I work. I want to sit down and I want to have, I usually am jotting down ideas all the time in my notes on my iPhone, like, and
Mhm.
they come at the most inconvenient times. It's like when you're driving a 2-ton vehicle and it comes to you like, oh, this should happen, or I'm in the movie theater. I do get a lot of, it's not that I steal ideas from content that I watch or read.
Mhm.
I see something that in structure works, and I'm like, ooh, I really like that. So an example of that is there's a scene in The Descended, and it's very short, and it's where um, Audrey reflects on multiple birthdays she's had.
Yep.
And I remember reading or watching something where it had this parallelism where it was like something happened and it was the same thing as birthday, birthday, birthday. And
Mhm.
I thought, oh, that could actually really work for, because I wanted to deepen um, the development of her character to identify why it is that it was such a huge gaping hole in her life that her dad just up and disappeared when she was young. I mean, I think that anyone would probably feel that way.
Mhm.
But I wanted to make it as aching as I could for the reader. And so, like, I take these structural, like A Quiet Place too, we saw in the theaters. And I remember in that movie, it's apocalyptic, it's very silent. There are these monsters who can hear anything. So if you haven't seen it, it's pretty scary. But I remember being in the theater and watching as the climax was like two different plot points, and they were
Mhm.
both hectic AF. Am I allowed to say that? And um, and you knew that they were probably coming together, but you didn't know how they were going to come together. And there was no time where you felt like you could take a breath and relax. And I decided in that moment in that theater that I had had one singular plot point going through the climax, and I wanted to break it and make two different really hectic storylines come together in what I hope will work for the reader as a, oh, like this is a lot and I don't know where it's going, but it feels really fast. And I suppose that's the kind of climax that I appreciate in art, is just something that like you can't look away from.
Well, you did it really well, and I won't give away a spoiler, but I thought it was really cleverly written, and the way you brought it in was very organic.
Thank you. I tried.
Well, because
um,
we had the question like, you know, what happened to him, and then it's answered. kind of. Very colorful.
Oh, with Kay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that actually changed. So one bit of advice I have for other authors, so I get, I don't know that I would do it the same way that I did it, but my process, and let me know what you think about this, Gigi. If it's like, since you have done this for 3 years, you said, I gather that you're probably going to know whether this is rare or pretty common. So the way that I write my manuscripts is I write to about 40,000 words because I generally want my novels to be 80,000. And then I pause and I stop writing and I enlist alpha readers. And so similar to beta readers, but they don't read a full ugly draft. They read a half ugly draft. And then I have them read it and then take a survey that I create where they can confidentially provide me information about like I ask them, were you bored? Were you did you feel like you cared about the characters? Did you feel like the setting was clear? Et cetera, et cetera. And then I asked them if they would be willing to sit with me for not confidential interviews, where I pepper them with other questions. Important among them is, what are your questions? And with the Descended, what I really liked about that process is I did not write the next half in a vacuum of my own mind. I knew what people were wondering. It doesn't mean that I went and answered all of their questions. I'm sure I didn't. And I know I didn't answer everyone's desire for, I actually had some early readers who were disappointed that I took out some steamier scenes. And I decided to do that because I felt like during an apocalypse for these two individuals who were living the realities they were living, it didn't feel realistic for them to be like partying around, if you will.
Get it on.
Yeah. And so, and then what I do is I finish the book with my own ideas, answering my own questions, answering their questions, and then do a beta round, which is, I think, better known in the author circles, which is where I have early readers do the same thing, take a survey, answer questions, then I edit. And then with this book, I involve my author critique group late. And I will say I had some regrets about that. And I mean, I was like, the reason I did that is because people said, you're not writing for other authors. You're writing for the reader. And so I was like, okay, well, that's true. So I'm a big one for audience. I believe the audience should always come first in content. But what I found in their feedback round is that early this year, after 4 years of hemming and hawing and writing, and I did take like a year and a half to query 150 literary agents. Yes,
Oh, wow.
we can talk about that. What I felt like is I waited too late to get their feedback. That said, my advice, since I'm going long-winded here, is just because you're later in the process and you've already set September 4th, 2025 as your launch date, don't stop. Don't get frustrated. Don't say, well, I'm not going to do that because you're tired. Like I really took a step back and I thought to myself, okay, well, this is kind of valid what they're saying. And I want to address it because I would rather address it now than read it in reader reviews. And I mean, you're going to read negative reader reviews. But the same thing was true of Kate. And so getting back to what you talked about with one of the characters at the end, not gonna give a spoiler, but let's just say the end was completely different and you had some different answers. And my editor, Kate Broad of Broad Editorial, said, you're not giving enough forward propulsion. So you know that you don't want this to be a standalone and you've set it up so that it's not a standalone. And the way that you're ending it is too much like backward information giving. And I was like,
backstory.
I think so, yeah. So I, again, steeled myself for later round edits than I preferred. And I know that sounds crazy because in some cases, like I know authors who are, going on September 4th and they just got their draft from their editor last month. But I'm a newbie and I just like to work ahead if I can. My husband would laugh at that because my mornings don't look like that. But And so, yeah, I was like, oh, I don't really want to make these changes. She's suggesting wholesale changes to my end. But I did read some reader reviews who said it was a good ending. Like it was the ending it needed to be. And I really want book number 2. So I take that as proof for me and maybe a testament to anyone out there who's like, "Oh, I don't want to do this," to just keep pushing. If you feel like the feedback resonates even a little bit, you should listen to it and see if the reason you don't want to do something is because you're tired. And if you are, take a day, take a day and just go do something else. Watch something creative, do something creative, and maybe you'll come back to it refreshed.
So 2 words of advice that I always tell people, and one of them I was given my very first developmental editor, who I adore. She said, when you absolutely hate your book and you can't read it one more time, then it's ready to publish.
Mm-hmm.
But working with a team, I just released my 14th book on last Friday. Thank you. And congratulations on your debut novel.
Thank you.
Some of it is learning ourselves as writers. It's learning ourselves as authors. We solicit expertise and we want them. And so I start out with you, same as you. I had alpha readers. I had a team of 5. Then I moved on to developmental editors. Well, I had a dev editor, but I couldn't get out on her schedule anymore, and she's the one I love and adore. Then I went to alpha. Then I went back to my dev, and now I have ARC readers. I don't really have beta built in the process because I released too quickly. But all that to be said, you have to stick with the story that you want to tell, and that's really, really
Mm-hmm.
tricky. And so my developmental editor is on here. She waved to us. So Deep Roots Editing, and she knows this, is like she will send over what she thinks work, but sometimes fundamentally you don't necessarily agree. And
Mm-hmm.
that is perfectly okay with your team because you get so much feedback you have to sort through. That's the great thing about having ARC readers is you have all that feedback, but you have to sort through what are the wholesale changes you want to make and what are ones you're like, I'm going to have to pass.
Yep. Yeah, it's all about intentionality. And I always feel better. I mean, go with your gut instinct too, because I think that our gut instinct, I don't know if anybody else watches Love is Blind, but Love is Blind UK has had this person on it who has been talking about splenic instinct. He believes in his spleen, and no shade. But I think about gut instinct or whatever you want to call it. And I think that it's important. But for me, what I really like in my own orderly way of deciding I'm not going to take an edit is, am I being intentional? And so, for example, there are some who do not like prologues. My book has a prologue. My book has a prologue intentionally because it is it is apocalyptic, but it also has a mysterious undertone of secretive society and secretive. Can I say it without spoiling? I think I can. Meddling, shall we say. And I really wanted to be able to give a hint of that before you get into the first chapters, which very quickly go into an inciting incident that feels really plot heavy. Um, monsters crash to ground, and a couple is interrupted in arguing about his not wanting to marry her. I wanted to make sure that someone knew there are secrets intertwined here. It's deeper than what the first few chapters might lead you to believe. And I think that's why that's a common device in sci-fi and fantasy. And so some people dislike prologues. Some even say they skip them. And
Yeah,
I'll be
I
honest, if
for
you
that.
have a really long prologue, I don't know if I'm staying with you, but mine in the paperback, which is right here.
Oh, there it
It is, what is it, Kate, from Rip Pages? It is literally 2 pages long.
is.
So I got in, got out, made sure I wanted to hint at something that I feel like, and one of my favorite reviews so far has been someone who said, like, when you hit on certain things and then reread, you can
Mm.
see that there were seeds planted along the way. And I
Yep.
was
You're
like
like,
that made
ah,
me
the
so happy because that takes a
foreshadowing.
lot.
Yep, when you foreshadow.
Yeah, it takes a lot not to have it be obvious and overt
Mhm.
when you do it. And then for someone to go back and have an aha moment and enjoy that aha moment just is a really big deal. I remember being a newspaper journalist, one of the things that I really felt were aha feelings for me, not
Mhm.
moments. And I didn't take joy in these necessarily, but when I would go on an interview and I would cry with the person that I was interviewing, and then I got back to the newsroom, and it was usually like fatal car accidents, uh, terrible tragedies. And so, I always let myself feel alongside people because I couldn't help it. And because I felt like if I were crying to someone, I would feel comforted if they cried with me, like I
Of
guess
course.
I
I mean,
felt that way too.
yeah, it's humanity. We're compassionate beings.
Yeah. And so when I would write those newspaper articles, those subsequent newspaper articles, and readers would say, oh, I cried my entire way through, or I cried at this point, I said, it's not that I wanted you to cry. It's that I wanted to get out of the story's way and let you feel the way it felt to be in the room with someone who had to experience and survive this. And I do think that journalism, it was both a hindrance and a benefit to me. So some of my early feedback and something I would share with journalists who want to get into this is we are trained, like, get out of the way of this, like, you have to let people speak for themselves.
Mhm.
But in novels, one of the things that novels deliver that other content forms don't is interiority. And I wasn't really doing that as much as I probably should have. And so that's one of the strong points of feedback I received from one of my author critique group partners late, is I don't feel like I'm inside their minds enough. And
Mm.
that to me is a problem. Like I think that it shouldn't read like a screenplay. It shouldn't read like he pointed. Like it should read more like you understand through their movements, through their words, through, yes, their interior thoughts that you alone can do in novel writing, what they're feeling and why they're feeling it. And so I was tired at that point. I had written this book since early 2020, but I still was like, that's valid and must address.
Well, I was going to ask you, um, do you think that is why you made the switch? Because why did you write? You're a journalist, a reporter. What made you decide to write a book and also publish it? Because a lot of it could just be for personal reading and not subjective and put it out into the world.
Um, well, I suppose for me so I want to be clear. I left the journalism world roughly 11 years ago. So today I'm a brand storyteller and marketing strategist.
Oh, gotcha.
Um, so I why did I decide that I didn't want to keep the story to myself? I mean, I suppose I didn't write a single word not thinking that I would try to do something bigger with it.
Mm.
And I don't know if you have an experience like this, but when I went to college, and you're reading a lot, you're writing a lot, and then when I went into newspaper journalism, and again, you're reading a lot, you're writing a lot, I fell out of love with reading for pleasure.
Oh,
I
yeah,
was like,
easy to do.
yeah. And so in late 2019, early 2020, I read a book, and I still remember I'm in my dining room now, and I was laying on the love seat over there and like covering my face because and it's not because my husband and I aren't sappy. Like our wedding vows talk about being maple trees with each other. Um,
Okay.
and so, but I was just shocked. Like I didn't expect the end to be what it was, and I did not expect to be like sobbing about it. And so I just feel
Beautiful.
like, there's a part of The Descendant where there is a certain character, I can't name the person for reasons you might know, um, And they have this moment where they're thinking about the curious ways in which dominoes fall in our lives that just hit one after another so just perfectly that they end you up somewhere. And the reason I tell this is because I wasn't reading for fun until I read, and I know this book is controversial, but for me, Where the Crawdads Sing, this I don't know what witchcraft she used to have such rich setting description, but such, for me anyway, incredible pacing and incredible character development and mystery and just, and so I read this, okay, so it's like late 2019, early 2020, and I have a point here. And so I read that, I loved it. Then I have a nightmare. And Gigi, have you ever had a nightmare where you have it and sometimes you'll wake up from a dream and you'll be like, ooh, let me settle back into my bed because it was so good and I want to continue it. And if I'm quick about it, maybe it will come back to me. This was one of those dreams where I sat up, heart racing, and purposely stayed awake so that it wouldn't resume. It was terrifying. It was the part in the very beginning of The Descended where they're on the Ohio road. And like, if you really think about it, and I hope that this came through in the pages, the idea that aircraft would be dropping randomly from the sky onto Earth next to you is terrifying. Like I got goosies just now thinking about the nightmare. So I have this nightmare and I decide you should write that down. And then I start writing it and I'm almost to the last domino where I'm like talking to my mom and my husband, and I'm on this part of it where I'm like having a really good time. By the way, I skip around. I do not write in beginning to end. I write what scene. I know. And I did this as a journalist and people were like, you are nuts. And I write the scene that I'm dying to write because I feel like if I'm not bored or not forcing myself to write it, then I know it's going to hit for the reader, or that I can manipulate it and edit it in such a way eventually so that it'll hit for the reader. And so I'm talking to my mom and my husband, and I said, how do I envision, because there's this underground bunker in this book, right, where they are surviving an apocalypse that was introduced by the aircraft crashing to Earth. And so I'm asking them, like, how do I envision what we would miss, or what it would be like to live underground or closed in for a prolonged period of time. And then March 2020 hit.
Oh, yeah, we were all living the apocalyptic life. Well, it reminded me when they were in the underground bunker, and he said, not, and this is not a spoiler, but he said, I miss the sun and moon and stars. I feel like that's what people in long-term care or those that are in ICU, it's such an artificial environment meant for humans to survive in, right? Hospitals are little cities, self-sufficient, but you don't feel the breeze. You can't tell what freshly mowed grass smells like. It's that. So when I read that section, I immediately thought of this is what ICU patients or NICU, that the critical of the most critical, this is what they endeavor.
That's beautiful and also
Tragic.
humbling. Yeah. And I wish that the descendants could figure that out for people. Because I wish that, like I have an aunt who is in assisted living and I'm in awe. She's 92, maybe 93, and I really want to live to see all the things. She's so I love talking to her when I do get to see her about, like kids. I asked her, what do you think about kids? And did they drive you nuts? And I have no personal reason for asking that question. But, and so, yeah, I just couldn't believe the fact that I'm asking this question and then weeks later, we are all literally stuck inside. Such that, I don't know if it was this way for you in Texas, but in Ohio, there were just, and I look back at that time, Gigi, and I think to myself, like, what, this is a line in that, in The Descendant, what a horror they now lived. But in a lot of ways, it felt that way during COVID. But the other day, I was walking down the street and thinking about the fact that, we are a little avid about decorating for Halloween, and thus we'll soon have our Halloween decorations out. And I was thinking about trick or treating during the COVID pandemic and how inventive and resilient people were, such that neighbors of ours down the street built these chutes from the second story duplex so that they could shoot candy down and avoid, getting within 6 feet of each other. And I remember like people cheering the postal service mail carriers. And, so I just thought to myself, like, what are the odds that I would read a book and actually enjoy it again, have a nightmare, decide to write it down because I actually enjoyed that book, and then feel somewhat fueled by like real deal life experience and knowing that I could put words to how it feels to be stuck inside while something not so great is happening outside. And so I hope that, this isn't a COVID-19, this isn't a pandemic, apocalyptic
Yep.
work. I know it's been said on several literary podcasts that I listen to, like people are still not super duper into those. Like, I think that it's too soon. Maybe, I don't know. Everyone has different tastes. But, one of the things that I hope people will notice and appreciate is the way that I try to capture that moment in time that we collectively lived and put it in a different time and space with aliens and people who have secrets. So.
I loved it. I do have to tell you, I'm in Texas, so we were only closed for 2 months, March to May, and then depends on your political state that you're in.
Yes.
And we were open for business, so our Halloween was no different than at all.
I don't remember if so Halloween wasn't different here because of governmental intervention, if I recall right. I don't know. Ohioans keep me honest there. We often say I have the memory of a fruit fly. For all I know, they have really great memories, but um, I feel like we were just all really cautious and trying to, make sure that the kids still had. I cried. I teared up walking down the street, seeing how people still showed up for kids who still wanted to like live a normal life. And so I thought it was amazing that my neighbors were doing all kinds of things to make sure that the ones who dressed up and went out still could have that experience.
Yeah,
Um,
well,
yeah,
sweet.
yeah.
So it's out. What is the plan? What's up next?
So I have a signing next weekend at Flame and Fable, which is a Lakewood, Ohio bookstore. And I hope anyone listening who is in the proximity can make it out. If you haven't checked out Nikki's bookstore, it is super cute. It not only has fantasy and romance books, but it also has all kinds of like booky gift
Mhm.
items. And there are games, and I believe she has blind date books as well. So she was one of the first people I asked, like, could I maybe schedule something with you? And so I don't know. I did start shipping some books personally through my own website, and I don't know if this is gonna make people think I'm a weirdo or what, but I got like clammy, and I bought these like Sharpie pens that the internet said are the best for signing books because they don't bleed through, but they're really nice. And then I told my husband and my kids, and they were all teasing me because I was like, what if I mess it up and then I have to throw one of these out? And like, what's next is I'm just excited to get out and, meet people who want to read the book or who have read the book. The book signing is next. And then I do have, so spooky season is my favorite season. And there's, I mean, you can probably tell from the cover if you haven't read the book that it's intentionally dark. Um, And again, it is post-apocalyptic, so trigger warnings include, I mean, definitely profanity and some violence, and creatures. But I'm going to do some Halloweeny, spooky season events. One
Mm.
thing that I'll share that I found very interesting and might be of use to other authors listening is my traditionally published author friend named Katie, hats to Katie, mentioned to us that she sells better when she goes to in-person events that are not book festivals, that are not book events.
Such
And
as?
she put it this way, and of course everyone's experiences are different, but her books are Aunt Claire's Pet Care. She writes young adult.
Okay.
And so, for example, she went to like I mean, we have a spooky pooch parade in Lakewood, Ohio, for example. I could see her doing that well. But she went to like a veterinarian themed event and was the only author there with a veterinarian themed book. So I've been looking into, and Kate from Rip Pages and I will be looking into tangentially related. So, of course, spooky season is a season to do that.
Mhm.
Um, and I'll see what works. And one of my biggest pieces of advice, because I live it in my full-time job, is you really do sometimes in marketing have to throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. Like I'm trying Amazon ads. I'm also monitoring them diligently. If they don't work, I will attempt to rewatch Publisher Rocket, see what
Okay.
I didn't do right, and like modify things. And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to turn them off because I don't want to spend money on things
Mhm.
that don't work. But I'll try those types of in-person events. I also have so we call it NEO, Northeast Ohio, and they have a bookworms book club. And one of the things I'd really like to do is engage with book clubs. One, selfishly, because anytime that I've been in a book club, I bought the book. But
Of
two,
course.
like I don't even know. I think my soul might ascend if like I'm in the room of people all talking about a book that I wrote and giving, their honest opinions and asking me questions. And I mean, this has been I wanted to be a writer my entire life. Like I tell this story sometimes. So my little sister and I grew up in Ohio, and we grew up in the 1990s. So you didn't really have gateway computers with the cow print boxes until a little
No.
later, and so we decided we were going to create our own newspaper for the neighborhood. And so I wrote it, and the banner story was our cat Tigger's birthday.
That's
And
so
she
adorable.
designed it. And the
Mhm.
reason I tell this story is because some of us, and I really wish this for everyone, at some juncture in your life, I hope that everyone gets to a point where they like the light switch goes off and or on, and they know what they want to do. I went on to do full-time writing. I still do full-time writing and marketing strategy, and my sister is a full-time designer. And it's just funny to me that we had this like little thing that, she didn't design it with InDesign. She cut and pasted, and then we went to the convenience store and copied it so it would look nice and flat and designed. But so yeah, I just really want to engage with readers. I have been enjoying reading reader reviews, even the ones that are like, I don't like this. I think that honestly, that adds credibility to the whole body of reviews, because if it was all 5-star, you would probably figure that I had an army of family and friends reviewing, and I don't. I used book sirens and I used ARC readers found through Rip Pages. Hi again, Kate. And I didn't want to do that. And in fact, every review that I have promoted on my social media or in banner images is purposely, I refuse to use someone who is a friend or family. No offense, friend or family. I appreciate you. But it just feels more honest to only use reviews that pure strangers have given to work that I wrote. Because I know myself, like if I go to a store or a vegan restaurant where my friends own it, I'm gonna be kinder with my feedback and with my opinions. And so that's just what I've done. But that's what's coming up. Is I think I have like a once a month thing planned, and I'd like to continue to do that so that I'm out in the community that I love and trying to build this small business called, I call it Flying Snake Press, because in the 5th grade, I won my first writing accolade for the picture book Licky the Flying Snake. So
So do people, is it on your website, all the different events that you're going to be at so people can find you and follow you?
yes, on flyingsnakepress.com, you can find, and you will always find, and you probably, if you were aware of my website before today, saw that I changed the date of my book signing and then rechanged it back because I forgot about a family party, because authors and business owners are just like the rest of us. And we are like, oh, I don't have anything on the schedule. It's fine. And I was trying to reschedule my signing because one bit of advice, if you're an indie author, I know that holding inventory can be scary, right? And you want to be conservative about how much you purchase through KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. I regret not purchasing more, because I sold more than I expected, which is a great problem to have. But now I have a book signing, and now KDP is saying that I'm not going to have any copies in time. So I'm having to hoard books and not fulfill orders. And I've been warning my customers and telling them, I appreciate you so much for directly buying from me.
Yes.
However, if you want it this week, you have to go through the big old Amazon, because I have to hoard my books. So that is a bit of advice that I have for folks, is like, buy more than you think and just commit to getting them sold.
Mm-hmm. So on Descendants, you left us on a cliffhanger. How is the rest of the story coming?
So I mentioned earlier in our conversation that I thought I was going to go the traditional publishing route. And I know that we have 7 minutes left to go, and I want to be cognizant of that. So I will give the very fast version. Over about 2 years, I queried 150 literary agents, and I know that because I kept an Excel file of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it. I did it the right way, although there is probably no right way, because everything is so subjective in the literary world, and that is okay. That means my book can be disliked by this person and loved by this person.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make it any less valuable or worthwhile. And I love that. So during the time where I was like, I'm not going to go indie, I'm only going to go trad. Yeah. I remember being told that I had to remember that if I successfully sold The Descended, which now you can purchase, and it didn't perform well per the traditional publisher's expectations, they would own my characters and my story. And if they decided I could not write the sequel, I would not be permitted to write the sequel, which, by the way, kind of sucks. And so I did not begin writing the sequel. What I have 56,000-ish words written is those of a standalone dystopian sci-fi called 34 Overbrook. At least it's called that now. You know how titles go. And it is described on my website, flyingsnakepress.com, under the books tab. So my goal is to finish it. And listen, I know that might disappoint readers, who there were a few that said, like, tell me book 2 was coming yesterday.
Yep.
But in a way, as a business owner, I'm sort of like okay with the fact that this is my trajectory, because here's what you hear as an author, and you know this, Gigi, and so does probably 9 out of 10 people listening. Mm-hmm. They, excuse me, they say to sell another book, you need to write one. And so my goal is to write, finish, and publish 34 Overbook. Hopefully it meets with people liking it. And then people will go and read my backlist, which is this little bad boy right here. And then by the time people read the backlist, and people maybe who read The Descended first have forgiven me and have read 34 Overbrook and have enjoyed that as well, I'm hopeful that then I can, have I want to be a smart businesswoman, and, a sequel is not going to sell as well as the first, usually. Mm-hmm. That's usually what they say, because for a sequel to sell, you have to have people who are ardent fans of the first. Mm-hmm. And that's not everyone who's read The Descended yet, and it won't be tomorrow or next month or next year. So I'm okay as a businesswoman deciding like whether a sequel happens depends on sales and overall reader sentiment. And so I would say to your listeners and my ARC readers and anyone who has read it and really, really, really wants to see where Kevin, Mitch, and Audrey end up, you know, let me know by, supporting the book, telling people that you know, because it does have to be a bit of a business decision too if you have a mortgage and three kids to feed. So like, yeah, so that's, I hope I don't disappoint too many people. So the sequel is not in the works right now. What is in the works is another standalone, which I will say is pretty different than The Descended. It's still based in Cleveland because I'm going to be like the Stephen King with Maine. Like, like I want
I love that plan.
everything. Yes. But this one has, I think it's called epistolary, where each chapter or many chapters are like bookended with newspaper article stories or menus or
Ooh,
yeah, text
neat.
messages or social media, like flurry of things happening when there's an explosion in a city center and a green gas spreading. And yeah, so like I said, I'm 56,000 words in, and I think it's probably high time to turn my attention back toward creating now that I am into the launch. And I will say one more time, I have the support of Kate as we move into, um, promoting this and getting it out there.
On your Overbrook, is that going to be around 80,000? So are you close to being done then?
Yeah, my goal is 80,000. Am I close to being done? I mean, I don't know about you, but with The Descended, I ended up like killing whole chapters. And so, yes, it should be closer than not. And I
Well,
do think
are you using the same blueprint that you did on Descendants where it went out to your alpha readers, it came back? So are you following that protocol with this book?
I am, with the exception that I think one after I bring in the beta readers, I'm going to bring in the author critique group
Sooner.
at the same time
Yeah.
because I don't want to wait the time that I did to find out when I did from people who know what they're doing with the written word, that I probably needed to dig deeper in some places. And, like that's
Mm-hmm.
just, it's just a different experience when you're that far in and you're realizing you got to build so much more depth to characters. So,
Well, would we be looking at a 2026 release by chance?
mm.
And I
I
don't lock
want
you in.
to do that. I want to do that. So my goal is to try to get an ugly draft. I call my babies the first, well, not all of them, not my real babies, but my book babies, I call them beautifully ugly. I hope to have it written here. I'm going to put it out there. This is my intention. By the end of 2025, I want that written so that people can start to tell me what they think. And my goal, and I would like to say to others who are like, oh, this seems so daunting to do this. I do think the indie author publishing journey becomes easier once you've done it a first time because you have some
Mhm.
of the infrastructure built. You know what to do with ACX Audible. You know what to do with KDP. You know what not to do, hopefully. And so I'm this one took me 9 months from the time that I decided it would go out in September until now, until
Like a
today.
baby, like a real baby.
Yeah, actually. And so, yes, I'm going to try my best to have a 2026.
So, two quick questions. One, where can people find you? Where can they find your book online?
Thank you for that. So you can find me on Instagram at author Michelle Park Lazette. It's Michelle with two L's, Park like walk in a park, and Lazette like Gazette, only with an L like lizard.
Mhm.
You can also find me on Facebook, author Michelle Park Lazette on Facebook. Those are the places where I'm most active in this endeavor. And then there's flyingsnakepress.com. As for purchasing The Descended, you can purchase it on flyingsnakepress.com and it will be signed and delivered to you. And then on Amazon, you can purchase ebook and paperback presently. I saw one of your episodes where one of your authors mentioned that she's at the mercy of Audible, ACX, and I too am. So we submitted for review August 26th, and we still await their
Yep, I've heard that many, many, many times.
yeah, and we don't even have a date. They haven't said like you can count on it by now. But they're communicative, and so I'm hopeful that it'll get out there very soon because I listened to what Lisa Beacom, the narrator and a trained actor, did, and I was pretty impressed.
Ooh, I can't
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah.
If you can wave a wand,
Mm.
where would you be in 1 year?
Mm. With regard to writing?
Yes, with regard
Hmm.
to your author journey and writing in your business. Because we want to put these manifestations out in the universe for them to meet us.
We do. I would be at a minimum break even with the costs of this book. So
Mm.
I paid for a book designer, for editing, for marketing, for I'm paying now for Amazon ads, paying now with royalties through ACX Audible. So I would like to be at a minimum break even for The Descended. I would like to, as I just manifested with you, have a rough draft of 34 Overbrook written. And this is my dream. I would love to hear from a producer at Netflix or Hulu or Prime who wants to create a limited series or a movie of The Descendant, because I have heard from others. Like I take a lot of my inspiration from the moving picture, and I did see some reviewers say like this feels cinematic to me, and so I want them to prove it.
Well, if wishes could go out in the world, I wish those things to be true for you.
Thank you, and I yours.
Thank you. It has been a very fast hour. So
It
I'd like
has.
to have you back when you have 34 Overbrook close to coming out. I would love to have you back and we can promote it as well. But congratulations on this release. I'm so happy for you and I love the book.
Thank you so much, Gigi, and thank you for all that you do for the author community. I think
Mhm.
that, for those of us who go it alone, we're lucky that in 2025 it doesn't always feel like we're going it alone because of podcasts like yours, Instagram lives like yours, and so many others out there who say, "This is what I did. This is what I messed up, and this is what you can do going forward to not make the same mistakes I did." So,
Thank you.
I
No, I enjoy what I do. I feel like as authors, we rise with the tide. I've said this many times. Readers are voracious. There's no one author that can fill the demand that some of these readers have when they're reading 200 and 300 books a year. I mean, mad respect. And so it takes
yes.
all of us. And I love storytelling. I love meeting authors. I do feel that there is a book in everyone, whether it be a memoir, whether it be sci-fi, crime, you name it, right? We all have a book in us. And there's a zillion ways that you can become an author. I think most people are writers. Not everybody takes the route to become an author, but I really feel like there's a lot of different ways. And so my goal in doing these author interviews is not only to promote and create a community, but also to help get the information out there to people who want to
Yeah.
write a book and publish it, to let them know, like you've had your traditional publishing experience and the query experience. And so they want to know, do I go that way? Do I go self-publishing? And kind of like the landscape of what it is now.
Well, and if I may leave the show with just this note, I ended my acknowledgments hopeful that my children, when they grow up, will never allow someone to gatekeep them from a dream that they have. And so, in that vein, I do have like a 14 to 16 page business plan and
Ooh.
marketing plan that I did month by month from January to September 4th of 2025, and then actually beyond, because I anticipate a year long marketing plan. And anyone who messages me and wants to see what it looks like, wants to see when did I do my LLC, when did I do my EIN, when did I do my checking account, how did I do, some of the things that you just don't think about. I would be happy to share it because I just think you're right. There are people out there who want to do this and it can feel really intimidating. And like I said, thanks to people like you, it doesn't have to feel intimidating. And if I can help one person feel a little less like, I'd be happy to.
What a beautiful, beautiful gift. Thank you for that generosity.
You're welcome. I mean, I'm just repaying it forward
Mhm.
because I really learned so much from years and years of listening to podcasts like yours, and just learning from those who were in the trenches, first in the query trenches, and then deciding I'm just going to be a businesswoman myself, I guess, and I better go learn from those who've been there, done that. So
Well, I'm 100% convinced the good karma we put out comes back to us. So I know that when you send that out to the world, it will come back to you in spades.
I hope so.
Yes. All righty. Well, until next time,
Until
I
next
will
time.
have you back next year or whenever that comes out.
Thank you so much for your time.
But enjoy your book release, enjoy the long release and all your signing events. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. And I wish you that for you as well. Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Gigi.
Ciao for now.
Bye.